All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get going because we've got a lot of information to get through today, but I am so excited to welcome Mollie Frideres-Smith today. Mollie started MFS Consulting LLC to share her expertise and knowledge in human capital management. She is active in local organizations, including Cyclone SHRM as the diversity chair, and volunteers on HR advisory committees for the Bridge Home and the Boys and Girls Club. Mollie is also an adjunct professor at DMAC, teaching courses in human resources. So Mollie, I'm going to hand it over and I will continue to let people in, but the floor is yours. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. Thanks for the introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. According to projections from the U.S. Census Bureau, 17 million businesses are expected to launch this year in 2022. 5.6 million of them are also expected to hire employees. So I'm sure some of you already realize we're in a hyper-competitive market for recruitment and retention of employees. And it's important for organizations to align their HR with their overall business strategy to make sure that you maintain a competitive advantage. I also want to point out today that the information I'm going through does not constitute legal advice, and this is for informational purposes only. Today is going to be a very broad overview of these topics. Each topic that we're going through could be a training session or an internal planning session in your organization, all on their own. My hope is that the information I'm providing will prompt discussions within your business or organization about some practices you can put into place to utilize your most important asset, which is your employees. So today we're going to cover how to attract, hire, and onboard the right people, how to create a compensation philosophy and structure, how to handle performance management of your employees. We're also going to have a brief overview of some laws and regulations that you should be aware of as an employer, and talk about preparing for staff development and succession planning. So once upon a time, back in the day, when an organization had a job opening, they would just simply post, for their position in a newspaper, maybe a trade publication or on a website, accept applications, schedule interviews, and then offer a position to a candidate. Well, things have changed. And HR used to be considered more of a personnel management and focus on the hiring and firing. If your organization is still approaching hiring in this way, you could be losing out on some opportunities or potential candidates. So as we all know, the world is more connected, and people are seeking information on the internet about your business without actually connecting with you. So you need to ask yourself, when does your first impression start for your business? When does your hiring process start? And it probably started online with somebody sitting at home looking on the internet. So it's important to create a brand that shows employees what's meaningful about what you do and how it will be meaningful and rewarding for them before you even need to hire an employee. You need to make sure that you're showing what makes your business a great place to work. And a great way to start doing that is to start by defining your culture. So some questions that you can ask yourself to help you define your culture are, what are our expectations for hours worked? Do we expect employees to work long hours? Do we promote a more work-life balance? Do we have very structured schedules and set work locations or set work times? Are we hiring highly skilled employees, or are we willing to train employees that we hire? Does our organization have a collaborative work environment, or do people work independently or remotely? In the industry that we're in, do we have a lot of rules and regulations that we need to comply with? Or do we want our employees to be creative and do whatever it takes to get the job done? So you can start developing candidates before you even have a job posting. And there's some simple ways that you can do that. And the first one I have is, as a business, you can join community organizations or associations You should also encourage your employees to join these and participate in them. Your employees are ambassadors for your organization. It's a great way for them to get out and network and meet other people that could be potential candidates as employees. You can ask vendors and external stakeholders for names of top performers. So for example, your board members, maybe consultants that you're working with, maybe a local trade school or community college has a program or a degree that applies to your business or the people that you're hiring for your business. When you have events at your business, a lot of organizations do this to attract customers. This is also a great opportunity to invite potential candidates for employees and show them what a great place you are to work. You want your website to be candidate friendly. And so this means that not only are you including current job openings, but maybe showing potential career opportunities within your business. On your website, you want to show what's meaningful about what you do, not only to your customers, but to your potential employees. Social networking is a great way to get out there, cheap and effective. You want to share stories and accomplishments about your business, and then highlight how your employees are contributing to your accomplishments as a business. So when you have a candidate that you want to interview, before they even come in for that interview or you set up that meeting, you want to give them as much information as possible about the process and prepare them to have the best possible experience. So for example, maybe you can just send them an email with directions if you're going to interview them on site about what's the address, directions to your location, where should they park, who are they going to meet with, and what are their roles in the organization. If you have a receptionist, make sure that your receptionist is aware that they're coming in and prepared to meet them. And then make sure that everyone who's meeting with that applicant is on time and prepared for that interview. And make the interview more about a conversation. So you want to ask questions, but you also want to give them the opportunity to ask questions. The interviewee should be able to ask you questions. It's a great time to give them a tour of your business, to show them the work environment that they may be potentially a part of at some point. Interview questions are asking about strengths, motivation, and fit. So you're trying to determine, can this person do the job? Are they going to love the job? And are we going to be able to stand working with each other? Remember that candidates are assessing you just as much as you're assessing them. And it's important to follow up. So do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Candidates always like to know when they can expect to hear from you. So follow through on that. If you're not able to do that, make sure you're communicating with them so they understand what's happening. Treat people the way you want to be treated when you're interviewing them. Follow the golden rule. So the message is that we value you as an individual and we appreciate your interest in our company. So, even if you don't potentially hire this person, remember, they're going to tell other people about their experience and potentially how great your business is. So your goal in hiring is to get the right candidate to accept the right offer. They should have the right seat on the right bus. So you need to start by figuring out, what do you expect this new employee to accomplish? How are you expecting this new employee to contribute to your business? So ask yourself, why am I hiring this person? What's their impact going to be on our business and the other people in it? Are they a good fit for our organization? It's important that employees feel confident in the role that they've accepted and that they feel they have the ability to do the job and that they'll fit into your organization. So employees need to have an understanding of your mission as a business and how they're going to fit in it. Remember, you can teach a new employee skills, but you're going to be hard pressed to change someone's beliefs or values. So you don't want candidates to accept offers that aren't right for them. If a candidate is going to turn you down, you want it to happen sooner rather than later. And once a candidate accepts your offer, you switch from recruitment to retention. That person now becomes your absolute best hire. And everything that you are doing is now about making that person successful. So when you hire a new employee, all employees are onboarded. The question is how? Studies show that hourly new hires think they're up to speed in about 3 to 4 weeks. Managers think it takes about 3 months. So onboarding is a comprehensive process that includes orientation, and the first 90 days of employment are critical. So orientation is about the paperwork and processes that a new employee has to go through when they become a part of your organization. Orientation usually includes a structured presentation, with HR and managers and maybe other new employees. So if you're going to have an orientation program, you want that to instill pride in that new employee, make them proud that they're working for your organization. Share stories about what makes your workplace great, how the employees in your business matter to you and your customers. It's a good time to include interviews with some of your organization leaders and other employees in your organization. It's very important for your onboarding and orientation to create engagement, because people quit people before they quit organization. So working together with the employee invites that emotional engagement and fosters a relationship with them. Studies show that there's a correlation between engaged employees and a company's profitability, turnover rates, safety records, absenteeism, and customer satisfaction ratings. You can start engaging new employees before they even actually start working in your workplace. So when somebody accepts a job offer, maybe you could send them a friendly welcome note or a welcome video, a really short video saying, "We're excited for you to be on board." A new employee wants to know what is expected of me. And employers need to address this by showing that new employee, how do we do things around here? And so before an employee even starts, maybe you can start providing them with some contact information. Who do I need to contact if I have questions? How do I contact them? Give them organizational charts or other information about your business. Sometimes certain businesses have a lot of, slang or industry acronyms. I know when I was working in healthcare, I think it took me the first 90 days to figure out what a lot of people were even talking about. So maybe even sharing some of that, before an employee even starts in your business could be helpful. Remember that the smallest things are making a big impression on your new employees. Think about it. New employees are hyper alert because they've been plunged into this unknown environment, and they're completely without institutional knowledge that your current employees already have. So your new employees don't know how things are done in your business, and it can make even the smallest task seem difficult to that new employee. So it's important to socially integrate new employees into your organization. Remember, people quit people before they quit organizations. So if possible, assign a mentor to show that new employee around, someone that they can go to ask questions and show them how things are done in your business. So when you have a new hire, you want to think about the process that you're using to integrate that new employee into your organization, and you want to have a plan in place. So you want to think, how long is our onboarding process lasting? What expectations do we have in the first day, the first week, the first month, and the first year? Again, what information should an employee have before they even arrive for their first day so that they're prepared for that first day? Most employees, what I've found is they have 2 questions. Where do I park and what should I wear? So, providing that information to a new employee is very helpful. Maybe you can give them benefit information, again, contact information, organizational charts, literature about your company before they even start that first day. And again, if possible, assign them with a mentor. When a new employee comes in on that first day, make sure you're prepared for them. I know we've probably all heard horror stories or have experienced them where you show up for the first day and nobody is prepared for you. You don't have your logins. Somebody says, oh, we haven't had a chance to clean off a desk for you. Here, you can use this one, just, clean it out and you can be here. Be prepared. Be welcoming and gracious with that new employee. Treat them like you would an honored guest. You want to introduce them to the people that they're working with on a day-to-day basis, but you don't want to overwhelm a new employee with information, and you don't want to leave them searching for information. I always use the analogy, you don't take a first date to a family reunion. Think about that with your new hire. Don't overwhelm them. Don't introduce them to a bunch of people that they don't necessarily work with day to day. So through that whole first day, first week, first month, first year, have milestones, make sure you're communicating your expectations, create wins during this time, accomplishments that you expect employees to achieve. And when they do that, celebrate those accomplishments. You want to create touch points throughout that whole first year. Have conversations with the new employee, make sure that their questions are being answered. Again, make sure that you're communicating your expectations. Continue those introductions in your organization and with key players outside of your organization. So the second strategy I want to talk about is a compensation philosophy. Deciding what to pay and what benefits to offer is a very important aspect of your business's recruitment and retention strategy. A compensation philosophy is simply a formal statement documenting your company's position about employee compensation. Employers use your compensation philosophy to attract, retain, and motivate employees. So first, you need to determine your why around your compensation structure and create a framework to ensure pay equity. So what does our approach to compensation say about us? Does our compensation align with our culture? How does our compensation and benefit structure help us achieve our business goals? Do incentives offered align with our business strategy? What are our competitors doing? What can we afford and what's within our budget? It's also important to know the basic benefits required by federal and state law, and make sure that you're offering compensation and benefits that are competitive and align with what your employees want and value. You can offer great benefits, but if it's something your employees don't want, who cares? Make sure it's something they want. So an effective compensation philosophy should pass the following quality test. You need to ask, is it equitable? Is it defensible and perceived by employees as fair? Is it physically sensitive and within our budget? Is it legally compliant? And is our organization effectively communicating our philosophy in our programs to our employees? Once you have your compensation philosophy set out, then you can move on and you'll want to conduct a job analysis to create job descriptions. So you need to determine what activities are performed as part of the job. You need to determine what experience and education is required for jobs. Under what conditions is the work being performed? So for example, is somebody working in an office? Are they working on a factory floor? Are they outside working in the weather and maybe subject to weather conditions? And then once you have those job descriptions set up, you want to group them into job families and then rank them according to duties and responsibilities, along with the experience and education required to perform those jobs. You want to make sure that you're doing market research to define your pay range, and you want to use a reputable salary survey tool to do that. You don't want to do it on your own. That can be considered price fixing and violate antitrust rules. Depending on how old the information is, once you get it, you may need to do inflation adjustments. And you're probably not going to be able to find information for every position within your organization. And that's okay. You can benchmark positions, based on those job rankings that you did. And then you want to make sure that you determine a salary range. So through your market research, determine what's either a fair starting wage or a fair average wage. The average wage is typically easier to use because you can define a range around that average, based on experience. So for example, maybe you do some market research and you find that your administrative assistant position, the average wage is $20 an hour. And I have no idea if that's correct or not. I'm just throwing numbers out there. And you're hiring for this position and you hire someone with 10 years of experience. And so then you would probably want to offer them more than that $20 an hour, since that's the average and they have more experience than that. Keep in mind that compensation can take many forms. So it includes base pay, which is your salary or your hourly wage. It can include incentives, which are bonuses that you put in place to incentivize workers to do more. Some organizations also pay differentials. So it could be based on something like shifts. So if you have an organization that's a 24/7 operation, sometimes they'll pay more to work overnight or on the weekends. Sometimes people also pay differently based on location and cost of living factors. So just a brief overview of some required benefits. State and federal requirements vary, and it's always important in your business to make sure that you have legal counsel and or a tax expert to help you with these. Make sure that you have a trusted payroll provider. So Social Security replaces the support income, and eligibility starts at age 62, and Medicare is a health insurance benefit. Employers and employees have to pay equal portion of Social Security and Medicare taxes from their payroll. Unemployment insurance provides compensation for qualified individuals during periods of involuntary employment. The state of Iowa handles unemployment claims and administration of unemployment. They will let you know what your tax rate is, but you also have to be aware that there are some federal laws that come into play. The Federal Unemployment Tax Act imposes tax on wages of employees, and you're responsible for paying for that. Workers' compensation is paid to employees if they're injured on the job and they lose compensation and maybe they need medical treatment. And it can help relieve you as an employer from liability for injuries that your worker may have sustained. You also need to be aware of Family Medical Leave Act if you have 50 or more employees. This allows eligible employees up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave during a 12-month period for treatment of a serious health condition of that employee or the employee's immediate family, birth of a child, placement of a child for adoption or foster care. Some core benefits that you probably offer to at least your full-time employees. Nearly all employers offer, some of these benefits here, and most full-time employees expect them. So holidays, vacations, sick leave. What's important is that you have policies in place that address, like what holidays does your business observe? How do you handle holidays that fall outside of normal business hours? What kind of notice do you require employees to provide if they want to use vacation or sick time? Who do they notify? How can they notify them? Are you requiring doctor's notes for sick leave? You also need to make sure you have policies about what happens if an employee has accumulated vacation and sick leave, and then they would leave your organization. A lot of organizations are switching to paid time off or PTO. It's just a lot easier to administer because it's all in one bucket and employees have more flexibility in how they're taking their time off. Not everybody observes the same holidays, and so it does allow employees more flexibility. If you offer bereavement pay, you need to determine and have a policy about who's included in that bereavement policy. For example, is it going to just be immediate family? Are you going to include extended family? And how many days are you going to give that employee for that? If you're offering health insurance, the Affordable Care Act may factor in. You may also be required to offer COBRA if somebody leaves your plan. You'll also want to look at some other things like health savings accounts, health reimbursement accounts, flexible spending accounts. Do you want to offer life insurance, short-term disability, long-term disability? If you have a retirement plan, you also need to have a plan in place or a policy in place about what's your employer contribution going to be and what's your vesting schedule for that. Again, you'll want to have a benefit broker that you work with to help you with some of these insurance questions. Discretionary benefits. So, be creative, ask employees what they want. It's a great way, get some feedback from your employees, ask what they value. A lot of things that are popular right now are education assistance or student loan repayment programs. Some employers offer transportation subsidies. Gas is outrageously expensive right now. That might be a popular one. Dental insurance, vision insurance, prescription drug discount plans, employee assistance programs. Again, mental health benefits are very popular right now. A lot of people are asking for them. Does your organization offer paid meals or maybe subsidized meals? Some businesses will offer their employees, massages, spa gift certificates, pet insurance, long-term care insurance. If you're a startup, some startups offer equity in their company, but if you're going to do something like that, again, make sure employees understand what that means. And again, it's something that they're interested in. So the third strategy I want to focus on today is performance management. The need for recognition is a basic human desire. Everyone wants feedback. Managers need to make sure they're communicating their expectations in receiving feedback from employees. And performance evaluations provide employees with information that they need to grow within your organization and make sure that their performance is aligned with what your expectations are. It's important to focus on professional development with your employees to promote engagement in your organization. Performance reviews can be done in a very structured process or informally. It just depends on how you want to handle it. Either way, you just need to make sure that you're giving your employees feedback. Organizations use performance management systems to determine pay increases, document performance. And this is important because you may need to address performance issues that lead up to disciplinary action or termination. So it's important that you have that process and document it in when things are happening. So a lot of organizations have changed how they're handling the evaluation process. Employees want feedback more frequently, and they're frustrated when they don't get it. I'll tell you, as an HR person doing interviews, I heard that a lot. People would be frustrated with former managers or organizations because they weren't getting feedback. They had no idea how they were doing. So it is important. So I'd say don't abolish your performance review process, but just change the way you're doing it. Make your meetings more conversational so that you're also receiving feedback about what's important to your employee. You can keep the conversations very simple. It can just be a matter of asking a few questions, such as what went right, what went wrong, how can we do it better, and how can I help you? So just make these conversations, like I said, make them less formal, but make them more frequent than once a year. We used to just have these huge evaluation process, once a year kind of thing, and you'd have these long documents, and that is the thing of the past. Maybe you want to do weekly check-ins, monthly or quarterly. And I know that you hear that and you're probably like, oh my gosh, that takes so much time. Actually, it can take less time than having this huge formal process once a year. And it means that any issues that are happening can be addressed quicker. It also means that you can acknowledge any accomplishments that your employee may have achieved even faster. If an employee has an accomplishment or does something above and beyond, make sure you let them know how much you appreciate that as it happens. Don't wait. It's more meaningful if you provide that feedback in the moment. Technology, will help you reduce paperwork. Like I said, in this process, you don't need a long, complicated form. I would encourage you, though, to have some kind of documentation of your conversation and make sure that your employee is also reviewing that and acknowledging it, just to make sure that you're both on the same page. The fourth strategy are the laws and regulations. Employers are required to comply with several laws and regulations. I already referenced the Family Medical Leave Act. Again, every situation is different and cannot possibly be covered in the scope of this presentation. And again, I want to remind you, I am not an attorney. The information covered is not a substitute for legal advice. Complying with legal requirements can paralyze managers and business owners. And so it is important to have a trusted HR resource or legal representative to help you. It's important that you're aware of the laws that can affect your business, because these are the sparks that can start a fire in your organization. So Iowa is an employment at will state. And employment at will is a legal doctrine that states that an employment relationship can be terminated at any time by the employer or the employee for no reason, as long as no laws are violated. So when you're hiring, you need to ensure that you're providing equal opportunities to all workers by barring discrimination against employees and applicants. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act comes into play. It prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, gender, pregnancy, or national origin. The Americans with Disability Act bars discrimination because of a person's physical or mental disability and requires employers to provide reasonable accommodation as long as it doesn't cause an undue hardship. The ADA will limit questions that you can ask to force an applicant to disclose a disability. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act prohibits discrimination based on age. So when you're hiring, just make sure you're not implying a preference for an applicant based on age, race, or gender or other factors. Don't ask questions on applications or in interviews that can be considered discriminatory. Make sure that your questions are focusing on the job duties. Ban the Box is an initiative that's been pretty popular for the last decade. You know, it's related to asking questions about previous convictions or criminal history. You know, and just ask yourself, is that relevant to the job I'm hiring for? I would encourage employers to check references related to previous employment history. If you are required or are doing background checks, such as credit or criminal background checks, you need to make sure you're complying with the notice requirements of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The Immigration Reform and Control Act requires employees to verify all new employees' identity and eligibility to work by using the I-9 form. Prohibiting discrimination also includes harassment. So behavior can be classified as harassment if it becomes a condition of employment and it's severe enough to create a work environment that a reasonable person would consider intimidating, hostile, or abusive. And a work environment can also include any time that an employee is performing work on behalf of the employer, even if it's at an offsite location or event, such as a conference. The Fair Labor Standards Act has set a minimum wage of $7.25. It also requires that you pay overtime for employees if they work more than 40 hours a week, unless they're classified as exempt. And an exempt classification depends on the job duties and the nature of the employee's work. Employees can bring a claim against an employer for harassment or discrimination without fear of retaliation. So I put this in there because this is the #1 reason filed with the EEOC for discrimination in the workplace. So if someone does bring a claim of harassment or discrimination, you and your employees cannot retaliate against that employee for making that claim. Pay equity. You need to make sure that you're paying the same wages between men and women performing similar jobs with equal skill, effort, and responsibility under similar working conditions. So to ensure pay equity, you want to make sure that you're matching the pay based on the duties of the position. Disciplinary action and termination. So if you do need to go through a disciplinary process, make sure that you're consistent. If you treat employees differently, you're going to have a hard time defending that. You want to use your process. Give employees an opportunity to take corrective action if they need to. Make sure you're following your procedures. If you decide that you want to terminate an employee, ask yourself, is this person going to be surprised that I'm letting them go? If so, do I need to step back and give them more notice, give them an opportunity to take action? Again, if you do need to go through a disciplinary process or a termination, it's important that you are working with a trusted HR advisor or legal counsel to do that. Our fifth strategy that we're going to go through today is staff development and succession planning. So a near record 4.3 million US workers quit their jobs in December of 2021, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. So most organizations aren't thinking about their succession planning until someone quits or dies, which is unfortunate because when you're operating in crisis mode, you're probably making poor decisions. A lot of organizations say that people are our most important asset, but the proof is in the pudding. How much time and money is your organization actually devoting to staff development? So that means not only current job responsibilities, but helping prepare them for future work and future job requirements. So to have a long-term vision for your business, you do need to have a strategic workforce plan in place. And so you need to understand, what are your staffing requirements? How are you going to develop your key people to meet not only their current work responsibilities, but keep their skills updated and prepare them for future job requirements? It's important to know the strengths and weaknesses of people within your organization. And remember that your employees are your competitive advantage. Succession planning involves understanding your organization's immediate and long-term goals and objectives, and identifying critical activities needed to operate your business on a day-to-day basis. So just think, if you have a product or a service that can't be made or delivered, your business is probably going to lose customers and revenue. So when you think about the long-term needs of your business, you also need to realize it can take years to internally develop employees that may need to move into different positions. So you want to start by asking yourself some questions about, what is your organization and the roles in it? What are they going to look like in the future? How is the state of our industry going to change and affect our business operations in the next 1 to 5 years? What operations are critical to the future of our organization? Will any operations that we have be discontinued or downsized, or will they grow or remain constant? You want to determine workforce trends, which I know can be frustrating. Succession planning can feel like you're playing a game of chess, because not only are you thinking about, what's our next move, but what are my next 5 moves going to be? Ask yourself, how does your organization identify key people and the positions in it? So ask, what positions are most important in getting business results? Your key people are not necessarily at the top of your organizational chart. So for example, maybe you have a trucking company that has a lot of drivers. Say you have 100 drivers that are delivering products to different customers. And if you have a driver quit, it can be an inconvenience. You may have to reroute some of your drivers, and it may cause a delay in delivery of some of your products. But think about your logistics person that's planning all of that. So if your business only has one person that's doing that planning and that person leaves, your deliveries could come to a halt. So, you want to think about, what are our key positions, and you want to revisit your succession plans on a periodic basis to avoid unexpected vacancies. Employees constantly have life changes, and you can have vacant positions or people going on leave. People are retiring. Maybe you have an employee who's graduating with a degree in a certain program, and so you know that they're going to want to move into a different opportunity. Maybe you have an employee who's experiencing some serious health challenges and need to take a leave of absence. How are you going to handle that for an extended period of time? So you want to start by identifying who's capable of stepping into these new roles in these key positions. So who's ready now? Who might be ready in 1 to 3 years? How about 3 to 5 years? What kind of training are they going to need? It's also important to understand what positions will you not be able to fill internally? And once you've identified these candidates, include them in that planning process, have a conversation with them, make sure that they're interested in what you think is a good fit for them. I know some employers have been caught off guard because they're planning on this person stepping in a position to find out that that's not something they're interested in. It's important to remember that, highly trained and technical positions aren't going to be replaced overnight. What kind of training do you need to do to share knowledge so that people can move into that position, even if it's not going to happen anytime soon? Share knowledge in your organization. Don't just have one person hold all the knowledge. You can do cross training. Maybe you have a leadership academy in your organization, where you do job rotations, job shadowings, allow your employees to attend conferences to learn new skills or enroll in educational courses. Succession planning is not an HR only initiative. It does need to include the top leadership of your organization. And then I threw in a slide here about career pathways because I just wanted to point this out. This is a little different than succession planning. Succession planning is more of a top-down initiative, whereas career pathways shows a career ladder of progression in your organization. It's a great tool to show employees, what kind of skills do I need? What kind of experience or education do I need to move into another role within my organization? Training programs are not a one-size-fits-all program. You may need to use a combination of apprenticeships, workshops, computer-based training, have your employees go to seminars, just use a combination of different methods. Training programs have evolved and can be done very expensively, through mobile devices, webinars, online courses. Individual coaching for employees is becoming more popular. It's still always effective to have a group training session or a workshop to bring people together. Most employees do want additional training and professional development. I know a lot of times we can balk at having to attend another training. But what's important is that employees feel that information and skills that they're learning link directly to their goals and benefits. So again, you want to make sure you're having discussions with employees about what kind of training and development options interest them. No one wants to feel like they're being forced to participate in something. And the employee needs to feel that what they're learning has a real work practical application. You also want to make sure that you're tailoring training programs to the employee's experience. So you don't want to have an employee who might have 10 years of experience in their job, constantly repeating the same training and having to relearn skills. I mean, it's very frustrating. Maybe you can involve them in the process of helping new employees learn instead of just making them do it over and over. It's important to create an individual personal development plan for each employees. So this is usually a documented plan for developing knowledge, skills, and competencies that's going to help that employee not only in their current job, but with their long-term goals. And when you do offer training programs, you want to make sure that you're asking participants, was the training relevant to your work? Did it help you learn new skills or knowledge? Are you using those new skills and knowledge that you learned? And as a manager or an employer, can you see measurable results through increased production, sales, better customer service ratings? It's important to not only provide development opportunities, but you need to make sure that you're holding employees accountable because you should see measurable improvements in performance, skills, and behavior when you're providing those training opportunities for your employees. All right, so that is the end of the information that I was going to share this afternoon. And so I wanted to open it up to some questions.
I am going to remove Spotlight. And if you have any questions, you can jump on. Feel free to ask them. We didn't have any dropped down in the chat, but I want to make sure that we have time because this is, I was telling Molly right when we were getting started, this is actually one of the #1 topics I have people reaching out to me right now for is hiring employees and being that person and doing everything correctly. So feel free to unmute yourself and drop a question in. Mollie, I think, that was a ton of information, but the number one thing I think people get skittish about is sharing when they're hiring the first person, how much information to share. They really get worried about giving away too much and retaining that person. Do you have any insights or advice on that?
Yeah, so if you're worried about like trade secrets or confidential information like that, you can have your employees sign a non-disclosure agreement. And again, make sure that you're including that as part of your onboarding and orientation process about the importance of that, and make sure the employee understands that.
I do have a question. What challenges are there in conducting interviews in person versus virtual? Let me go back up here because we had a couple questions come in. What challenges are there in conducting interviews in person versus virtual? What are the differences in approach?
You still want to make sure that you're setting that person up to have the best possible experience, provide them with information about what to expect either in person or online. Who are they going to be meeting with? Depending on the platform you're using. I think at this point, a couple years after COVID started, we're probably all familiar with all the different online platforms that are out there, but maybe it's helpful to provide some on what employees need to do to hop online. Of course, it's always better to meet with someone in person and have that conversation face to face. You get a feel for people that you wouldn't online. Honestly, I hear good and bad about both. So it's not that I would discourage, you from doing one over the other. Just make sure that you're preparing that person for what to expect.
And we have another question. What are some of the most common mistakes when onboarding a new employee? Anything you would recommend us to avoid?
Yeah, I think I kind of glossed over like that first day is pretty critical in that onboarding. Make sure that you're prepared. Make sure that you're excited to see that new person and that you're welcoming them. And we've probably experienced horror stories where you start and people are like, I'm so busy. I can't handle this today. I'm just going to put you over here. So-and-so will be with you. Make sure that you have somebody that is with that employee and, there to answer their questions and guide them around, even if you can't be the one to do it. Make sure it's a trusted employee that's doing that. Make sure that that new employee always has someone that they can go to ask questions, and make sure that you're having conversations and communicating, what do we expect of you as an employee? It's just so critical. Like I said, in those first 90 days, to make sure that you have a lot of touch points with that new employee and make sure that they feel like they're fitting in with your organization. People quit people before they quit organizations. So make sure that they feel like they're fitting in and they're welcomed in your organization.
I love that. I actually wrote it down. People quit people. We touched a little bit on culture, and that's another thing that I get a ton of questions about is building culture, or they say the culture is one way and then the people get in there and they witness a whole different thing. Any tips or guidance on culture? Because that seems to be a hot topic right now for every company, no matter the size.
Yeah. Every company has their culture and your culture is okay. You just need to be honest about it. It's going to be very frustrating for an employee. When I say it's important to make sure that you have the right person on the right seat, on the right bus, it's going to be very frustrating for that employee if they get into your business and realize, what you're marketing is not what you delivered. And so they're going to lose, you're going to lose that engagement with that employee. And so make sure that whatever your culture is, you are honest about it, and show how does your business benefit that employee, but be honest.
And then another line, since you're on the diversity and inclusion piece, like I read in your bio, there's been a lot of questions around happy hours for culture and the legality of that, or, some people just don't drink. Do you have any opinions on that? That is a sticky subject I'd never know how to answer.
Well, I mean, it probably kind of depends. I mean, so when you have a happy hour, it's fun for people to get together and gather. Maybe there's other ways that you can get employees together. Can you have lunch instead of happy hour? And is happy hour, is it kind of, voluntary? And when I say voluntary with quotation marks, do employees know though that they're missing out if they don't participate in it? Don't make employees feel like if they don't go that they're losing out or they're not, as welcome in your organization. Maybe there's other things that you can do besides happy hour would be my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, I had the two questions, because one organization that reached out, they've always done happy hours, and they had 3 different expecting moms, and they felt like we're being exclusive. My recommendation was to do a mocktail hour, so they felt inclusive, and it was very intentional. I don't know if that was good advice or bad advice, but I could see where that gets sticky, for employers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. If you're going to have a happy hour, make it a mocktail hour, kind of thing, so that everybody feels like they can be a part of that.
All right. Do we have any more questions? Does anybody want to unmute and ask a question? We're kind of wrapping up here, but we do have time for one more question if anyone has one. All righty. Well, we will have this recorded. So if you want to share it with any of your teams, we will get it edited and up onto our YouTube page here within the next couple of days. Mollie, thank you so much. I mean, you said it was a lot of information. It was a wealth of really, really good information. And honestly, thank you so much for your time. You donate your time to be here, and appreciate you so much. I do want to call out that her contact information is right there. So if you want to get it before we jump off, please do so. And Mollie will also have your contact information as well. So thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you at our next Top 5 in April. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.